Welcome everyone on the webinar on collection strategy during COVID. We have been running this session for the last 2 weeks and we had got an overwhelming response for this. In the last 4 sessions, we had over 300 participants who registered and attended this. This is our endeavor. This is a knowledge initiative by Samvit Insights. So the agenda for today's webinar, so there'll be an introduction where we will talk about the speaker, the firm. We will talk about what are the collection challenges that COVID has put forward, very different from a normal collection environment. How do we redefine our collection objectives in these trying times? The importance of customer, product and portfolio segmentation for designing the collection strategy. How do we do customer communication and engagement at this time? Which is very different and unprecedented. We talk about the different collection strategies that we can adopt and some key points to takeaways on which we can have some actionables. My name is Arijit Chanda. I have spent around 28 years in the financial services industry, including 10 years in the consulting and trading space focused on BFS. So I had worked with the Tatas, the Citigroup and Fullerton in business, risk and collections. And after that, I founded Samvit Insights, management consulting and a training firm. And we have been focused on doing both strategy design and strategy implementation, both for business and risk. A bit background about our firm. So as I mentioned, it's a 10-year-old firm. And we do business strategy and risk, both design as well as implementation. We are also into business and risk analytics, and we also do operational effectiveness. For the last 10 years, we have provided consulting and training services to several NBFCs, HFCs, SFBs, universal banks, fintechs in India as well as abroad. We have the team here has worked in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Oceania, India, and multiple geographies. How are we different from others? I think other than the knowledge and the experience that we bring in, we are more practitioners than consultants. So we work hands-on. So if you see, our ESP is not only the design, but also the implementation. We work with our clients hands-on on implementation, whether it is business, whether it is risk, whether it is collection. And our focus is predominantly on execution and outcomes to meet the business objectives. If you want to know more about us, you can go to the website www.samvitinsights.com. and you will get a better understanding of our offerings, the kind of clients we have worked, their testimonials, etc. And as well as you'll get a sense of about the team. Now, coming back to the key event about COVID. Now, this is a dashboard that we track perhaps every day, if not multiple times a day. And the concerning aspect is that the numbers are growing and growing at a much faster rate. There was a belief that it is slowing down, but at certain pockets, it is actually moving at a faster rate. The important thing to notice is that the impact, if you look at the top states which are impacted, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and I have not included Madhya Pradesh, this actually constitutes 60 lakh crore of nominal GDP. So if these states are out of action for a long time and much of our portfolios are focused there, and there is hardly any economic activity, we can understand what will happen to our GDP, to our portfolio, and therefore the collection challenges that we will face. But the important aspect that I wanted to highlight here is that for the first time in the recent memory, this unprecedented crisis has brought both lives and livelihood under a severe impact. Because if you go back, and for some of you seen, 1996, 2008, then 2016, November, IL&FS crisis, etc. Most of it was impact on livelihood. There were a few lives lost, but never at this scale and never as at fast, which has brought everything to a standstill. And the reason we are saying this, because when we do collections, yes, we have issues sometimes, as MFIs had in certain pockets because of regulatory changes, political issues, whatever. Sometimes your rules like GST comes in and slows down. But the event risks, like we had a liquidity crisis 2008, a demo in 2016, and now we have this. this actually brings to nearly to a grinding halt. But never in the past it has come to a grinding halt. People were working at a lower capacity, and therefore perhaps it could still be a V-shaped. It is very difficult to predict how the economy will turn around from here. And most important, because a lot of lives are getting impacted, it could be our customer, it could be our staff as well. So this has to be kept in mind while we prepare our collection strategies towards COVID. So from a webinar perspective, it is important to see that it has affected all across, making both the future and highly uncertain. But the first time, not only we are impacted financially, we are also impacted psychologically. Most of the people are worried, when will their business start? When I will go back to my job? Will I face a pay cut? Will I face a job loss? So it is not only burning a hole in the pocket financially, but it is also having a psychological impact on customers, employees, etc., with a hugely uncertain future facing us. So the normal time-tested collection strategies have to be modified to address this. So what we have done is we have tried to assess the ground realities surrounding COVID and explore different options, short to medium term, to manage this crisis to the extent possible. So we are aware, like you have been reading in the last couple of days, a lot of measures that the government has taken. The regulator had taken initially several actions to address the portfolio measures. I'll highlight them. But I don't believe they are adequate to handle this kind of pandemic. So 3 months moratorium was given, but there is no clarity where this moratorium was actually going to come in from the banks to the NBFCs, HFCs. Though RBI has been pushing, and some of the banks, as you saw, SBI, PNB has said yes, many of them have not formally confirmed. And therefore, especially the small size, medium size NBFCs, MFIs, etc., will have some stress. And what is as a bearing on my collection? Because if I had received moratorium and I had passed on to that, I would have had a back-to-back arrangement. But if I give moratorium and I don't get a back-to-back facility, then I will have a severe asset liability mismatch coming up in the next few months. And obviously it will impact my capability. The provisioning norms initially were not clarified, but it was later clarified that for the first time, the third bucket, or whatever you call SMA2, you will have to provide provisioning. Initially they kept it from 1+, but I am thankful that they understood that that would have perhaps the largest amount. So they have basically gone what we call a potential NPA bucket and providing 10%. So this is an additional provision which will impact your profitability. The asset classification, with a clarification second time, they said it is remained not changed, and don't have to report anything to the credit bureau for 3 months, except for accounts which are NPA, which will age automatically. Now, I believe that 3 months is not enough. I have been speaking to customers, I have been speaking to financiers, etc. And most of them believe that they will come back. It will take them 6 months to a year to come back to normalcy. Because many of them, as you know, operate on red zones, orange zones, so with restricted, they don't see them go back to normalcy anytime soon. So even if the moratorium goes over and you demand an EMI, it will be very difficult for them to pay because it will take them a while. So I believe that a 6 months would have been a much better. Though it was proposed by the Bankers Association, the regulator has not yet given its consent. I also believe the moratorium should be without interest, because you are not having any revenue, and just servicing the interest without any revenue at this point of time, when you have fixed costs, is going to be difficult. The asset classification needs to be suspended not only for 3 months, I believe for a longer period, for 12 months, because that's the kind of comfort at this point of time the financiers are looking for. Otherwise, the bucket movement will create stress, and therefore that will eventually go back to the customer. And last and not the least, which I find very surprising, has not yet been addressed, though the NBFC Association has made a request. I believe that most of our customers will require restructuring post this. So I will talk about it later at the appropriate slide, but I believe that several of them because of cash flow impairment in short to medium term. So therefore, currently the restructured loans requires some provisioning and asset classification, which I think should be kept in abeyance for 12 months. So it is true that the regulator has already taken some proactive steps, but I believe we will require more support for us to actually go through this crisis with a portfolio more intact. So what are the collection challenges are we facing, and how are they different from what we were facing earlier? So the first time we will face travel restrictions, where travel will not be that easy going forward. We will face social distancing. People will not welcome us to come very close all together, etc. So we'll have an impact on the field visits. For the first time in the history, the business is closed because your previous crises actually had temporary impairment for a short period. So you were operating at a 70-80% capacity utilization, you fell down to 50-40%. But never it came to a standstill for 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. And therefore, which impacts your cash flow, that you have no cash flow. If you are a salaried guy, you are facing pay cuts. You are also facing a lot of job losses. If you see the recent data of CMI, they're talking of 12 crore jobs already lost, but maybe at the lower end of the pyramid. But we must be staring much more once all the packages are rolled out and it is assessed by the industry. And based on what they see normalcy, we will expect that some excess baggage we will cut. So this will obviously result in low or no savings toward the salaried class. And all this will result in delinquency. Added to that, the EMI moratorium will also bring in its challenges. And the last and not the least, this is not the appropriate time to invoke imposition and maybe even legal, because both the courts and the police are perhaps not in that frame of mind where they're handling other things more urgent to get into something which can create a franchise risk for us. So what are the concerns that both the customer as well as the financier is seeing at this point of time? If you look at the customer, his first priority today is to take care of self and family, the health, their safety. The second priority is to restart the business and get back to normalcy. How does he procure raw material? How does he get the labor which is moving on? How does he manage his overheads? And his third priority is the EMI payment. Now, in the past, when the business was going good, the first two priorities didn't matter much because it was already taken care. Only thing he had to manage was the EMI. But this time, his priority of EMI has been pushed way below in his priority scale. If you look at the financier, they are looking at higher non-contactability at this point of time, because this time it has also affected the good pool, perhaps resulting in a larger EMI default due to cash flow issues, and a probability that the good customers can move from an ability to an intent issue. So these conflicting priorities of the customer and the financiers, we will have to manage during this time. I will just take you through an example of the impact that may be. This is illustrative to make a point. So let's assume that you had a bounce rate of 15% and a 5% delinquency and a 2% loss at that point of time. In the next 6 months, we believe the numbers may look like this. It can go up to 2x, 2.5x to 3x in terms of bounce, delinquency, and losses. But if this lockdown continues further, if the phased opening up the economy takes longer, then if it is beyond 6 months, then maybe we are looking at numbers which are very, very scary. Bounce rate up to 50%, delinquency around 25%, losses up to. So anywhere between 3x to 5x, depending how fast we can manage the lockdown, how fast we can do that. What happens if this goes on? Obviously, your capital adequacy will get impacted. The profitability of the firm will get impacted. And the valuation of the listed price will also get impacted. Needless to say, you know that one of the large NBFCs with a high valuation, because they had unsecured portfolio, already took a hit on their market price after this piece. Now the numbers look scary, and my job here was to actually scare you, because it would be easier to give a somber number, but I personally believe that until unless you're prepared for the worst, you will not be able to handle what you will face over the next 6 to 12 months. So maybe it will not be as worse on the right, maybe it will be more like what is in the middle. But if you have to prepare, you have to prepare for the worst. And if you do that, then it will ensure at least you will not reach that level. But this, in my opinion, is a high probability in certain sectors and segments. So this will bring us to a topic of how we believe that the collection objectives will change. So the first time, so if you remember our earlier collection objectives, managing GCL, collection cost, loop back to collection relations to policy, managing flow rates, recovery, etc. Those will be there. I'm talking about additional objectives that will come into play. First will come continue customer engagement, because this was not a challenge earlier. I could set up a telecalling center, I could sell field, but because of the lockdown, because of the social distancing, because the good portfolio people can now bounce, I have to ensure that I am in a constant engagement with them, because it was not there. Earlier, I was worried about 15-20% of the book which bounced. I would not engage with the customer until unless I had an upsell or a cross-sell opportunity. And therefore, in this scenario, when everybody is impacted, including my good customer, it requires for us to engage with the customer more intensely and on a continuous basis to understand what's happening in his life, both his well-being as well as his business. The second piece is to keep our team motivated, because these are challenging times and even the team will get demotivated. Most of the people have not worked from home earlier, especially the field staff, and also our agencies who will see a lower pool coming to them. So we have to remain connected and motivated for them. The third aspect is improving non-contact collection. Now, some of the organization has been doing this better than the others, but generally there are segments and sectors where it is predominantly cash. But if the scenario will bring a new world order, it is important now there is a greater focus from the collection perspective to improve upon non-contact collection capability. I think the bigger challenge that we are to brace is for the first time the good customers have become marginal customers. That you may see when the bucket opens in July, August, September, that you see a spike on the front end side. The first time, because there's a flow rate of good customers, coming out and not paying your post moratorium. And the second risk is the marginal customers, which were bucket 1, bucket 2, are starting moving to a potential NPA to NPA. So we have to manage them. That's our fifth objective. And the last objective, which is common, is obviously to overmanage the provisioning and the losses. If you see, I have highlighted provisioning and separately, because I will talk about a trade-off when I talk about restructure. So the question will be, which is more preferable to me under these circumstances, and what trade-off should I do and why? This is perhaps the biggest change that we have to be prepared for. From the day it was declared, now collection has become everyone's business. It is no more only collections business. It is a sales business, it is a credit business, and it is a collections business. And there are several reasons for this. One, because if there are more delinquencies, you will have the budgetary constraints, not able to push more collection people. That is one. Secondly, If your good customers do come in forward, you would like to have your business and the credit guys give that support with engagement. And sometimes if you have to restructure, you will have to understand his business and then do it. So for various reasons, it is now becoming everybody's business. You will not have the only collection team's bandwidth to manage it. So everybody has to chip in and work as a team. So as I mentioned, good and marginal customers will be a concern which has to be managed by the sales and the credit team at the front end. And the whole portfolio will work if everybody chips in and works as a team. Before I go to the customer, I want to first talk about employees. Because to me, if they are not motivated to collect, you will find it very difficult to manage the portfolio. So what are the worries that the team has? Will I face a pay cut? How much the pay cut is expected and how long? Very simple reason, because he has also loans to service. He has also mouths to feed. And if he is himself worrying that I don't know whether I'll be able to support it, it becomes very difficult for him to concentrate on the job. His second worry is that will the company survive the crisis? Correct? While people are talking about a lot of liquidity being created in the system, we know that not everybody is getting the equal share of the money. You have to be that well rated. You have to be on that kind of a size to get that kind of benefit, because everybody will become choosy, including the banks, the private equities, etc. So will the company is liquid enough to survive the crisis? Will I lose my job in the near future? In addition to all these three, there is an additional thought from the sales team. How long do I have to do collections? This has been thrust upon them. This is not what they do normally, except for certain products in the front end, let's say housing or SME or CV, etc. But for this time of them, we need more hands on the tech, and therefore we have involved them. But this is not their core skill, so they will worry, when will I go back to business and move away from collections? So I believe that it is important that the organization actually addresses this first, reassure them that their jobs are safe, because if they are not reassured, you don't expect them to go and take PTPs and collect. Be transparent with them in terms of where the company stands, what is its plan. And I understand that everybody today has that basic maturity to understand that there will be cuts, there will be some jobs lost, but at the end of the day, the organization is trying to survive and manage for better. So I think people do understand that, even if they don't agree. And it's important that we assure and provide them the transparency they require. Just to keep them engaged, we need to have a daily schedule of work, whatever that work you should, because before this thing happened, both the sales, the credit, the collection, they were all attuned to do a kind of scheduled work, number of files coming, number of logins happening, number of PTPs to be collected. And suddenly with the moratorium and the COVID, etc., the loan demand has fallen, people are taking a lot of moratorium, there is no credit file to approve. And you're pushing them to collection, they have to do. So it could be number of calls they make out, number of contacts they make. They discuss about, asking customer not to use the moratorium, but there has to be a work schedule they follow. And it has to be reviewed on a bi-weekly basis. So it is not only about motivation, also keeping the team focused on the work, because when you actually come out of it, the work from home is not done by many people and it's not very easy thing to do. You can also explore productivity-led incentive. So far we have given performance-led incentive. It could be a smaller amount for what you know, but you can think about thinking that, okay, if I give him 80 accounts to call and he's able to contact so many people, if he's able to speak to many people and he's able to stop so many people from taking moratorium, okay, I'm doing a survey and he's able to get so many survey responses, that's it would be an incentive even for him to get, because he knows that once there is no business, there is no incentive for the sales as well as the credit guy or for the collection guy. Just to keep him motivated, just to make sure he remains focused and does the job that he's supposed to do during this time. I had also mentioned about the agencies. Now, when I was talking to some of my clients, ex-clients, current clients, I basically tried to understand from them how they were managing agencies, and I was disappointed to note that several of them have actually cut out the agencies in a big way. Some has completely stopped, some has reduced them to a minuscule amount, creating a lot of distress in the system for the agencies. And I don't think so it's a great idea. I understand that you will say that I need to manage my expenses and my sales team and credit team is sitting idle. They need to be used, fine. But the challenge that you will face is that if you stop with them suddenly, when the moratorium ends and the bucket balloons, you will actually need them much more than you needed them yesterday. So give them some work and to keep them busy, to keep the teams busy. Even if it is a light by rotation, etc., whether to run a survey, contactability. To address your questions about cost, you will like to rework the pricing with him. You may tell him that I'm not here to fund your full cost or profitability, but I may like to show a human face in managing some of the costs that you bear for your team, and maybe we'll allocate you X amount of calls or accounts, etc., so that they can work on it. And part of their cost is what we are bearing. Obviously, there's a benefit in terms of contactability, PTPs, etc., and something you bear. Because I believe that when it comes, you will need them. They should be there to support you much more. I spoke to someone who runs a large call center on this space and who has been impacted. And he's told me that I'm not very sure how long I will keep my team together. So I may have to pare down. So after the crisis ends and then I'm given a large account, I'll not be able to position to actually service them in terms of quality. So you will need them more during bad times. So exactly like you take care of your team, you may also have to take care of your agencies in a different manner, in a different scale, at a different price point. But it's important that you do so, that when you need him, when the moratorium ends, you need him for collection, he's there to support you. Now this brings us to the question we discussed about people. Now we discussed about customers. Who are our customers likely to be? How do they look like now post-COVID? So I have broken them into good, bad, and the ugly. The good customers are who are non-delinquent, who have late vintage, who have lower POS. The bads are which are on potential NPA, early vintage, and higher POS. And the ugly are the customers which are stabilized in bucket 1 and 2. They are mid-vintage, anywhere between 33% to 50% of the loan vintage, and they have more or less stabilized. So we have to bring these customers in these buckets to decide what kind of actioning we will take. And this brings us to a very key element of collection strategy called customer segmentation. Predominantly, we are used to bucket segmentation and we are doing that, maybe some amount of POS. But why this customer segmentation is required very much this time? Because for the first time, if you have 100 accounts, earlier with a bounce rate of 15-20%, you would have managed them with a 90% to a 97% efficiency, and you would say, fine, that's the way I'm managing. But if it's the first time everyone is affected, and with the bounce rate shooting to the roof, you will not have the wherewithal to manage and engage with all customers at the same intensity, at the same time, with the same workforce. So you will have to figure out, how do I have a differentiated strategy by doing customer segmentation? So let's talk about salaried first. So again, these are illustrative. So if you see, I have broken up the salaried into government, private sector white collar, private sector blue collar, and casual workers. So in the government, I have shown low impact. The low impact, most of these are relative. No impact is not because they will not have pay cuts, but their job loss chance is minuscule. In the white collar, you will have pay cuts and you will also lose some jobs, but these are likely to be better off. In the blue collar sector, the impact is going to be high, and this is a permanent employee. I'm not talking about temporary and casual. That is only because of the lockdown restrictions not allowing the factories to work at 50%, 33% capacity, and for a long time with social distancing, preventive measures, etc. So most of them will work by rotation, less overtime, etc. So they are likely to get impacted. Obviously, there is a demand element of that industry as well. And last and not the least, the casual or the temporary sector will be the highest impact. And we believe, so if you have industry like construction, some aspects of manufacturing where 20-25% of the workforce, like automobile industry, auto ancillaries, etc., will get impacted. So if you are funding with your salaried class, you will know where your exposure is and you have to work accordingly. If I talk about self-employed non-professional, I have put red all across. There could be some moderate and green as well. So if you're talking about essentials, including groceries, pharmacies, etc. But I just want to highlight the ones which are dangerous or tough. So if you look at auto, while there may be an initial spot once they open up, because there has been some good inquiries coming in, the more because of the social distancing norm restriction on public transport, but it is not sustainable after time. So there will be having issues. The restaurant anyway, the hospitality is impacted. The restaurants will not get filled. People will prefer to order at home, maintaining social distancing for some time. We spoke about manufacturing, working at 33 to 50% kind of workforce at any point of time, maybe single shifts. And the informal segment, which you are there on the road, opening up much later sometimes. And obviously the demand aspect, they don't have too much financial ability to sustain over a long period of time. If I look at self-employed professionals, I have shown you obviously doctors are perhaps best at this point of time. Even a temporary doctor today will earn anywhere between 75,000 to a lakh per month. A chartered accountant will have his job because there are so many regulation changes, TDS changes, GST changes, etc. that are coming. Their skills will be required to manage the taxation side. And however, you look at architects, for example, because real estate is going to be very severely impacted. People's investment, especially on the housing side, residential could get impacted, also commercial. So they will get impacted. And I have also shown tuitions because unlike the previous norm, I think the classes will not be that crowded. The children, the parents may not send them. So it may move to, with social distancing, many more classes, maybe online, etc. So they will be moderately impacted. So this is from the customer segment perspective. Let's talk about industry perspective. Now, since it's not a credit session, I will not get into too much detail in terms of each industry, but just to give you a sense. So there are several industries plotted here, and you will see they are from low impact to moderate impact to high impact. Some of them you anyway know because there are a lot of reports that are floating around. But just to give you an example, you will have pharmacy, which is perhaps doing the best at this point of time because of the pandemic. The auto industry is totally shut. Not only, so let's you take auto ancillary, for example, which does not only service domestic, but also international. The demand in Europe, US is down, so they are not selling anything. Hospitality industry, is perhaps the worst impacted and will take a while because there's hardly going to be any travel, both business or leisure. If you see, I have given agriculture a moderate impact. We are looking at a good monsoon for sure, but they have other challenges. They have labor challenges now. They also have logistic challenges to bring it from the field to the APMC to the end customer. So it is a moderate impact. If anybody is doing CV, there is a severe impact on commercial vehicles. There's hardly any load because there is no production. There are a lot of trucks which laid abandoned on the highways because the drivers were not going to be found. So their impact is also high. There are others like plastic, printing, packaging because they are required for certain essentials, etc. They will be impacted lesser compared to others. Why I'm saying this? Because now, depending on what product you do, whether you're an SME, unsecured, or loan against property, SME secured, or you are doing PLA, CNP, etc., or you have an housing book which is exposure on self-employed on the affordable side, you will have to have a view on this because the industry is affected, the people who are working there are affected, the value chain is impacted. Then we talk about product segmentation. So if I look at the products on the personal side, I have given a low risk, again relative, for the housing because this is something he will try to protect now. Even the car loan or the auto loan, I have given a lower risk because he will want to have his mobility, his two-wheelers, etc. But the consumption loan that he has taken will not be his top priority at this point of time. If you look at the earning asset, we spoke about tractor on the farm, why it is medium risk. We spoke about commercial vehicle, which is high risk. The construction equipment is also high risk. Because at this point of time, only thing that you will get is perhaps less investment from private and more push from the government. But government finances are also very stretched. So while they may give work, the debtors realization may get elongated because most of the governments are tightening their belts. If you are doing business funding, surely you are at a high risk if you have done unsecured loans compared to if you have done CCOD where some limits are still available, you're over collateralized, revolving facility, or you have done loan against property where you have low LTV, maybe at a mid vintage or late vintage. Because there is a security, I have given into relative medium risk view. We are now talking about portfolio segmentation. Your biggest focus now has to be on early vintage, and you will hear me saying about this multiple times during this session. Your important thing, because if you were having a growing book when you got hit by this, and March was supposed to be even better, so your last 6 months, 9 months, 12 months Boeing has been growing, and your early vintage is where the growth is. And if they falter, you have a bigger impact coming in and difficulty in management the collection portfolio. So all the focus will now go to the early vintage. Second, obviously the earlier bucket. As I said, I expect the bucket 1 to swell or the moratorium getting over if it is not extended. More people actually soliciting restructures, etc. And if it is not managed well, we will see some swelling. So the second focus has to be here. Obviously, you are handling multi-product. Then you will obviously look at products which have large principal outstanding, large portfolio of books, because they are likely to get you the larger losses. Bureau scrub. This was done selectively in the past, but this will now become a big norm going forward. Because earlier, I would only worry about customers who are marginal and bad. But now the good customers, there's a greater probability that he can become marginal also. And as you are aware, based on your experiences, depending on the product and the segment that you play, several of them have multiple loans. And you have to figure out post-moratorium, whom is he prioritizing over you? Is he giving money to the home loan and not paying my personal loan? Or is he paying my loan against property and not paying the CD loan to someone else? The second is the risk rating. So risk rating means people who are doing SME loans, etc., will see some downgrades of their own customers over time. And obviously, if there are double downgrades or downgrades at the lower end, these are customers which will require an extra focus. A new dimension for portfolio segmentation will come. We have done pin code wise collection, portfolio, all that. But this time, first time, we will also have to start tracking as per hotspot, containment zone, etc., red, yellow zone. And this will be there till the vaccine comes around. So this another dimension of portfolio segmentation will come into play. And I'm telling you, considering the sizes of the books you have and considering the good customers are involved, customer segmentation will actually drive you to do some risk categorization. The whole purpose is that if I do a proper customer segmentation, industry segmentation, portfolio segmentation, I should be able to categorize risk. So on a 2x2 criteria, I have just given few elements. There are several other elements that you can put. You can do this logically or statistically. Both are possible. But create a much in-depth risk categorization so that you can decide what collection strategy you should adopt by management by exception. So you don't do everything for everyone. You decide where your focus is and you do that. And that is where the segmentation actually helps. And it is important that you should be able to leak your segmentation. And so this will require a lot of data crunching, something that you are quite comfortable with in the collections. Some of you have done in credit, some part of the risk team have done it. It is important that we do so. We figure out which industries are not doing well, what customer segments within that industry is not doing well, whether it is linked to a earning asset, whether it is linked to a secured asset, and that actually tells you what action you will take. So this segmentation will help you to prioritize which accounts to focus, how to drive contactability, and what intensity we should bring on the collection. The second thing from the where, and this is where the trade guys will be involved with business, you have to decide based on the response you get post moratorium, and for the next few months you will decide, okay, these are the customers I need to retain and grow. These are the customers I may retain temporarily and then grow later. And there are certain customers I need to exit. Because it doesn't matter if some of the good customers comes into bucket one because of temporary issues, they have not become bad overnight. They might go back, and you need to protect your good customer base, because that's where their growth is also going to come by getting a greater share of wallet. And the last part of segmentation is to figure out what method do I adopt. I cannot keep on doing only physical method. So is there a segment I can talk about only digital only? Is there lower amount of physical, or is there a phygital also that I can explore? So we spoke about employees, we spoke about customer segmentation. Now we will talk about some few MISs which will be key for you to keep an oversight. Now I'm aware that you do several MISs in the organization, so I will not spend time on discussing the plethora of MISs that you look around. I will only bring your focus on 3 MISs which I think you have, and you need to focus them on, and I'll give you the reason why. The first is the early vintage. I spoke about it. Put all your focus on the vintage. Go back what you lent on the month of February, what you did cases even in March before you closed down, Jan, Feb. How many of them have taken moratorium? What about guys in the Q3 of last year? How many of them taken? Because those were, if they are not overmanaged, they are likely to give you a greater grief going forward. Driving from this will be your lag delinquency. Most of our metrics are linked to coincidental delinquency, not lag. Normally this is done for presentations, others, but this will become very important. How will you know that you are actually looking at a much higher losses going forward? So as we used to say in collection, that this is like a crocodile's jaw, that the distance between the coincidental and lag should not increase much. If they are increasing, the jaw is increasing, which basically means that you have to be prepared for higher losses going forward. If you're able to maintain the jaw or close it, then you will be better off in the next few months. And the last MIS that you anyway do is the scenario analysis on roll rates. So the optimistic, pessimistic, and likely, we normally do it on last 3 months, last 6 months, etc. But I'm not talking about only those roll rates. I'm also talking about sensitivity analysis. So these are the scenarios. The other sensitivity is that what if my bucket 1 flows goes up? What if my flows from bucket 1 to bucket 2 goes up? And if I keep on doing a sensitivity change, what is the likelihood that my losses will get impacted substantially in the coming months? And why this is critical? Because you will now be asked by your finance team, the MIS team, saying that what losses do we predict? We didn't have much of a revenue. We need to control our losses. So prediction will become an important thing. So 3 things I spoke about. Just put all your energies on the early vintage. Just make sure that the jaws of the lag delinquency is not opening, and do the scenario and the sensitive analysis so that you can decide what kind of intensity, what kind of staffing that you require to ensure that you are able to overmanage your provisioning and losses. This brings us to another element which has been very neglected in the collections field, and I will talk about collection analytics. Most of the focus has been so far on application analysis, scorecards, building, how to get customers. But collection analytics is going to stay, and this is not an easy thing to do. This is a behavioral scorecard, unlike an application scorecard, requires much more variables, and the difficult part is most of us don't even capture these variables in the system. So you can't build this model only on a LMS. You will require data from CRM, LOS, LMS, collection systems, every possible coming in from the lawyers thing, everything. So this is as a part of strategy going forward. As the books start growing, as the things changes, it is important that this investment is made by the organization. So as we mentioned, we work in this space, and we are now talking to a couple of customers who are taking our help to develop this. This takes time. This cannot be done overnight. It takes 6 to 9 months to build it. but there is substantial benefit, because going forward, your budgets will constrain you to invest in lot in terms of physical people, payouts, etc. So question should be that how do I use data to drive analytics to make sure that it is cost effective and it is productive. So this will obviously require you to change the way some of you work, include systems capturing data to drive it. But this is going to be the way forward in terms of analytics. Other thing about the digitization that we will talk going ahead. Now it brings us to we have finished with the quantitative piece. It brings us to a qualitative piece, customer communication. And this is something that I will stretch a lot, because this was important, but this has become very important under the circumstances. And the logic is simple, because if the customer did not bounce, I could just send an SMS and it would be fine. I would follow up with a call, reminder call, awareness call, etc. But bulk of my portfolio need not be called after 3-4 months once I get a sense that which are the customers are going to bounce. For the first time, as I mentioned, that your good customers are also likely to become delinquent because of cash flow issues, more market related. So therefore you have to engage. And in this current market, you just can't call customers and just start asking payment from day one. So you will have to basically call him, get a sense of his well-being, understand how his business is doing, and then figure out how you make that pitch for collections. So question, how will you call? Because you are not able to go there, so it has to be offline. In the sense it can't be physical. When to call him? Because everyone is busy. I mean, even if a guy who is working in the job, some of you are attending webinars, somebody who are doing online conference calls, reviews, etc. Still work is on, correct? So it has to be at a time. If it's a self-employed essential commodity, he's still working longer hours to support. Non-essential guy is trying to figure out different ways to do so. The important question is, what is my motivation of calling him? What do I want? And what do I tell him? So the normal scripting of collection which was there has to change. So the change that will bring about is this. So earlier you used to call him, if it bounced, you talk about payment. Now you just can't talk about payment, including your good customers and your marginal customers especially. So you first call him and inquire his well-being, his family's well-being, his employees, staff's well-being, whether they are fine. Because at this point of time, I said he is not only financially distressed, he is also psychologically impacted. The second is that you empathize with him. These are trying times and everybody needs a word of encouragement and support, and he will hold on to anything that he gets. And it has to be genuine. The third important element, and you will find this surprising, is awareness. Government is trying his level best to create awareness of what protocol that we follow as lockdown opens. And if you have seen papers and listening to news, etc., a lot of people are not following it. And why awareness is very important for your client? Because if he is not aware and he does the work he did in the past, he can fall sick, his family members can fall sick, his staff can fall sick, which basically means that his business gets impacted, and his business gets impacted means I don't get the money. From there, you have to create some reassurance. Just to give you an example of one of my clients across the border, a couple of banks where I spoke to the business heads, they said the first thing they did when the lockdown happened, they sent a single line message to all customers stating, such and such bank, we wish for your health and safety, we are here for you. Don't worry, if you need, please call one of our RMs, we will support you. That's all they said. And then they gave the list to the RMs to start calling them. Customer getting assurances from suppliers, debtors, etc., but also coming from the financiers gives him confidence. Because what is it that you are trying to do differently? You are trying to build trust. And it's a very important currency that you will see over the next 6 to 12 months. Customers will pay those in prioritization of his minimal cash flow, the people he can trust, and the people whom he believes has behaved well with him. So it is important you create trust, and obviously in the end you try to motivate them, because exactly what you do with your employees, you tell them, even in trying times, you have to tell them that don't worry, we will come back, we are with you this together, you have done it in the past, this can be done, because you want your customers to survive and do well, even if it takes time, because your relationship with him is just not for the next 3 months or 6 months, it is much longer. If you want a repeat sale, if you want an upsell, etc. So this part of communication had to get a lot of focus as you go along, and this will require a totally different change in scripting, the way you do calls, and more so for your sales and credit team who is not adept to this kind of calling and engagement on a normal case. So this whole communication methodology has to change. I am aware some of you have already done it, but it has to be done in more structured fashion with an intent. Now, once I have established trust, and what do I do next? Then I need to engage with him to understand what is happening in the business and how does it affect his cash flow and therefore my EMI repayment. So if I talk about self-employed, I will inquire and try to understand to what extent his business is affected. How long is it taking to realize his debtors? Okay, so if your business in Maharashtra, for example, there are cities and towns which does not have, is in the green zone. It's not affected like something that is happening in Mumbai or Pune, for example. Secondly, most of his debtors are now telling him, we can't pay now, we'll pay later. How is he managing his suppliers? Is he also delaying their payment, or if he's worried that he will not get goods when it starts, so he's actually making partial payments? Because everything he does impacts his cash flow. Most importantly, how is he managing his fixed cost? Because at this point of time, your rental payment is there, your your salaries have to be paid off your laborers. Even you may delay it, some do a pay cut, you still do, but you have no revenue. So how are you managing those fixed costs? And what is your business resumption plan? When will you come back? I spoke to somebody who had done a survey of customers. Many of them believe they will come back to work on 15th May and 1st June. Some of them even thought 1st May. So 1st May is not happening. 15th May is also not happening for some of us. It may go to now. As of now, it has been, let's say in Mumbai and Pune, it is 1st June, but it may be pushed to 15 June. So what is his plan? Even if he comes back, how do you think he will work? How much time will he take? What kind of a sales does he see? Because he has to take your EMIs in the future. You have to understand to the customer what is happening to his business. So what is the business viable in the short and the medium term in terms of cash flow? If I am engaged with a salaried customer, then I need to inquire and understand, is his salary payment delayed? Has the pay cut been imposed? Here also we had checked with some people. Several of them said that they got their money in April on time, but their salaries in May have been delayed. Some people said some pay cuts has already been announced, and all this impacts his cash flow. Is he staring at any job losses? At this point of time, the percentage was quite low. But if this goes on for over time, this may actually get a number getting bigger. You have already seen the kind of losses we have seen in other countries at this point of time. Important to understand from him, how is he working during lockdown? Because if the guy is working, and which basically means that he is of some value to the organization, that the organization has kept him engaged. It could be his work related, it could be his upskilling related, etc. So how is he working during lockdown? And the last is, what kind of support is he getting from the organization? Did he get a salary advance? Has he been supported with, bandwidth, connectivity, laptop, whatever he has got in terms of support to work with him? Because all this will also give you a sense that whether this guy is like to continue, and therefore maybe at a lower income, but at the same time, you will figure out whether this is guy's cash flow will impact my EMI repayment. So extent of salary cut, job losses impairing EMI ability. So it is very important now to figure out from them. So this brings us to a new norm of non-contact collections. So we are now talking about more voice or non-voice collections. You are aware of certain banks and large NBFCs which has started with very low numbers, and today they are doing much large numbers in non-contact. There are multiple payment options that you have today. Do I believe that the physical collection will not go away for certain customer segments, certain geographies, and certain product segments? But we have to try to do and get more non-cut collection going forward. Just to give you an example, so I used to work, I had done work with a tractor finance company. And you know, in the farm tractor business, predominantly cash. When they came in, they gave a 5-year plan that they will have a higher percentage of non-contact collections to the bank. And I also didn't believe the targets they took. But when I spoke to them after 7-8 years, after I had worked with them, it had reached a 70% threshold. And this is farmer in the rural area, taking tractor, large EMIs coming on a quarterly, half-yearly basis, and they managed to hit a 70% collection when the rest of his guys are at 30% or 20% of non-contact collections. So there is a huge impact for them on the portfolio, also on the collection cost. So I'm giving you these examples that when we believe that is not possible, we have to start thinking how to make it possible, because this is something will become a norm. If you see, I have given a small example of a business correspondent as a non-contact. That means he still has a contact with the customer, but not with you. I'm saying we have to think differently. What if the essential guys who manage there becomes my drop facility for cash and check, where the customer does his regular essential shopping and he can Paytm me the money or phone pay me the money. So different ways of doing it. So he can do it online, you can do it from mobile, desktop, but he can also use a differentiated business correspondent model on which the money can come to me. The idea is to, can I increase my non-contact collection capability? This brings to me another big topic. So like the customer segmentation I've spoken about, the other big thing the employee need spoke about is rehabilitation of customer. Now I know that restructures and re-age etc. was a bad word in the recent past, but when I used to work earlier with the Tatas and the Citigroup, it was actually a very good work, because at that point of time, if the customer was in distress, we used to rehabilitate a customer. In fact, we had a division called rehabilitation, early warning and rehabilitation. But unfortunately, this thing was misused later in the second part of 2000s, and when people did this just to hide their portfolio losses, and it got a bad name. Now, whether you like it or not, the customers' businesses are impacted, and they're impacted globally. We work with several countries. So I work in Bangladesh, Georgia, Myanmar, China. Wherever we are going, customers are impacting. They are asking for restructures. Okay. And I believe that until unless the regulator gives it, you might be forced to do so. Now somebody will say, and I'll come to this once I give you the options, that rehabilitation is to basically retain your good customers. Because what will happen actually is, as the lockdown starts ending, your customers will open the shutters. They have to get into a maintenance mode, then to a procurement mode, then to a production mode, then your sales mode, and the cycle will start. And it can take anywhere between 90 to 120 days, and the sales cycle can go up from 90 days to 180 days. So for that, if you go back and say, no, I want my EMI as on 1st July, he might force you to give the first one, and then he'll start avoiding you because he cannot service, because he didn't have revenues in the past, in the recent past, plus he doesn't have adequate revenue to cover his fixed and marginal cost. So the question is, how do we rehabilitate him? We have to think differently and do this rehabilitation. And there again, I am saying how business and credit will play an important role, how your understanding of industry will also play an important role. So you can start looking at interest only loans. So if you believe that this customer segment is not in a position to give me a principal repayment in the next 3 months or 4 months, and I'm not talking about what the regulator has given, but he can service interest, and therefore I can start collecting EMI after some time, then you can do that structuring. People who have done construction equipment will know that this is a very normal process, where during monsoon, only interest was collected and principal was actually equally collected over 9 months. So this is where you think that the impairment is there and it is going to take some time. If you believe that he's coming up slowly, you can actually look up a step-up loan. You can say, okay, fine, you give me 20% in the month 1, 40% in the month 2, 60, 70, 100, but 5th month, we believe that you will come back based on his discussion, assessment of his business, past track record, etc. You can look at up a step-up loan also. You may actually be required to give an additional loan to get back your own money. So if you see the scheme that the government has given, the 3 lakh crore of giving additional funding for them to come back, is they believe that if they don't give them any money, they're not coming back. They will require extra money because, as I said, you open your shop, a lot of things are wastage. You have already spent money on semi-variable fixed costs. You need some money to do it. So for some set of customers, your rehabilitation may also look about not only doing what you did the first 2 steps, but also providing additional support to turn around. And the last bit is to structure it differently in terms of collection as a percentage of sales. So some of you would have done loan against card receivable, etc., would know that they collect from a percentage of sales concept. So it's not in a EMI concept. So this is much your sales, then we will collect X percentage from your sales, maybe on a daily basis, weekly basis, fortnightly basis, rather than collecting the full EMI. So as per the customer business model, cash flow, credit comfort, you will have to start thinking that how do I restructure my good customers and therefore I can keep him viable. Now some of you may ask that, if I restructure account, I have to take provisioning. There's a chance that this account will get substandard by classification. So as I said, I still hope the regulator will listen to the appeal made by NBFCs and others. This is the trade-off I was talking to you about. If there is a 5%, 10% trade-off that you do today, and this customer remains current for 6 to 9 months and you can bring him back, in my opinion, you have a better option than allowing the account to flow by pushing him and collecting partially, increasing no contactability, and then start providing for those accounts at a larger amount over 6 to 9 months. Because your hits will start coming in post-October, and from October to March is where you will start seeing as the moratorium, if the moratorium don't get extended, starts wearing out. So this is something that you have to start thinking, and it is a decision that has to be taken business, credit and collections together. And again, I said, focused on the larger part of the book, which is the good customers and maybe some marginal customers. So in terms of collection strategies, what are the few things that we can do? So if I'm a self-employed and I am in essentials business, I'm still doing my business. So I have a grocery shop, I have a medicine shop. So I didn't have an impact. In fact, I was doing better. Then please continue to collect his EMI. There is nothing to be done because he's having his sales, he should pay. There are certain businesses which we had no sales now, but will have sales coming in a proper fashion post the moratorium. If that is so, then give him the moratorium and then collect his EMI post moratorium. So partial cash flow. So there will be certain businesses where he will say, sorry, I can take the moratorium, but even after moratorium, I will take 5 to 6 months to come back to normalcy. So my cash flows will go from 10, 20% and reach 180, 100% in next 4 to 5 months. If these are the accounts you will restructure, working with the cash flow with the customer. You have to be conservative, ensuring that he pays you on time, and therefore he does it, and you are able to then keep this customer and grow in the future as and when his situation improves. You will also have clients who have erratic cash flows. That means even if they come back, they will go up and down and they will not be able to predict their cash flows tremendously. Here you have to collect in a shorter frequency, maybe daily, weekly, fortnightly, depending on the type of trade you are talking about. Just keep on taking a percentage of his sales out rather than going a traditional EMI model. You will also end up with customers who have no cash flow, and after 3-4 months, they raise their hand and say, sorry, we are not able to run this business and we are shutting down, because it is not that we have any bad intent, but we don't have the capability to do this. In that case, please offer settlement. Okay. Take surrender of asset. Don't repossess if he's still a guy who is intent does not issue, and get it get a settlement. And I will discuss about settlement later. So a lot of people will say that settlement is also not a great word in the collection world. But again, the circumstances are different here. Because here also it is a trade-off. You have to ask yourself, will I take the present value of the money today of the future, or should I wait for 6 months and get a lower value of that cash with a greater uncertainty? And to me, you will figure out different ways of doing it, to NPV, IRR, etc., to figure out what is the kind of money that I can settle for today. Because the simple logic is, in this pandemic, cash is the king. So if you have cash, you are still better off than the other guy who has something in the future. And last and not the least, obviously you will have these intent customers who don't want to pay. They were always there. There's no change. And therefore, the legal and the deposit action can happen as the things start coming up. But the focus of this whole presentation was less of, because I know that you know how to handle them. So that is not a big thing. The important thing is how do we handle our large pool of good and marginal customers. So if it is salaried, then again, if there is no salary cut, because I've spoken to several people, several of them have not have salary cuts, correct? The percentage is varying, so 35 to 40%. So if the salary cut has not happened, please continue EMI. If the salary cut has happened and you have the proof and it is around 20%, okay, if it is around 20%, then 20-25%, then you can give him some moratorium, 2-3 months time for him to recoup, and then you can start collecting the EMI. If the salary cut is above 20%, 25%, then not only moratorium will not do, because his debt burden will increase, then you have to take a restructuring for those customers. Again, for these customers as on 1st March, assuming they were current. What if there is a loss of job? Now there are different scenarios. So I may have a loss of job, but I am also holding some offer letter which I am going to join once the lockdown ends. So he's in between jobs. So nothing to be given. If he is not having a job in hand, but his profile is good, and you know that he's likely to get a job, maybe at a lower salary, then you can reschedule his loan by giving a principal moratorium. And if it's a loss of job at the lower end of the pyramid where you don't see much hope, then opt out the settlement, especially if it's unsecured, exit the relationship. So this brings us to the key collection strategy points that we have to remember and that we have to follow. As I mentioned, please focus on customer segmentation. While the word is customer segment, I'm talking about customer segmentation, industry segmentation, portfolio segmentation, and your ability to link it and create a risk categorization on which you will devise your collection strategy. Learn to connect remotely. This will be an order of way of life. So you'll have to figure out how we can improve contactability. The customer communication and engagement model has to be more based on trust, empathizing with him, assuring him so that he remains connected with you and prioritize you over others. I am 100% certain that the next 6 months or 9 months, it will be a soft collection scenario. It has to be more relationship based. You can be assertive for sure, but if you try to get aggressive, especially with your good and marginal customers, you may actually lose them. The involvement of credit and business for the good customers and the marginal customers to understand business prospects and cash flow in the future, to understand their viability, to decide what strategy to be adopted. I cannot emphasize much more on the structuring, loan restructuring, and I think irrespective whether the regulator gives the dispensation or not, especially what business, if you're in SME, home loan against property, some of them, you may have to think through. As long as the capability is temporarily impaired, but the intent is good and the past performance is good, this is something that you should seriously consider. I mentioned about avoiding repossession. I think at this point of time, the police is neither in the mood or ability to actually support you. If anything goes wrong, you will end up doing a franchise risk. If you think you can overmanage, great. But at this point of time, I will perhaps put for more settlement and perhaps more surrender of assets than repossession. Involving the sales team is very critical at this stage. Now you will say everybody has done. Now I am making a separate point. Just involving bodies is not the thing. This is not their core job. So the collection team has to invest in changing the script, in way of engaging them so that the collection is managed. Just giving 60 accounts to collection team, they just call them and ask them to pay payment, until unless that is a job they are always doing in the front end. But for many retail products, it may not be the case. Focus on EMI now. Obviously, I will never tell you that don't collect on penal and others. You should. But at this point, the EMI is what you need to protect much more. Again, as I mentioned, a greater emphasis on non-contact collection in spite, and there are organizations which are now going to focus most on digital operations, and this is something that you will have. And customers, exactly like when demo happened, the whole digital payment industry went through a transformation. I believe this kind of crisis will also go through for the lending institutions as well. Please support your agencies in whichever way you can, because if you don't keep them closer to your chest, you will actually need them post July, and you have to make sure that they are around to support you in any which you want them to do so. Settlement, as I mentioned, is not a bad word again. You will have to settle based on what vintage of the account, what bucket on the account, what present value you are getting, what is your assessment of the customer, but it is something that you have to look forward to, because if he has multiple loans and you are holding an unsecured loan in that fashion, then in the priority, where do you stand? You need cash in hand today than tomorrow. So this is something that you have to perhaps, and as I said, none of these tools are permanent. They are temporary. They come for certain specific and they go away as the economy changes. Bureau scrub will become an order of the day. So please ensure that you do scrub regularly, because you will, post July, when they start reporting for the next 5-6 months, you will figure out that he is actually prioritizing his payments. It's very difficult for somebody who has a home loan plus a auto loan plus a personal loan. He will prioritize a CD loan, for example, he will prioritize. So you should know from the scrub and accordingly design your strategy. You have to start investing in script tracing. I'm expecting that depending on the type of customer and all, a lot of people will change locations, move out of current residences, etc. This was not a big issue earlier when the economy was doing well or moderately well, but severely going to be issues if you are going to grow at 1.2% or 0% for the next 1 year. Right allocation. This is an interesting point that I will make. When I say right allocation, we are not talking about whether you will give 80 accounts to somebody or 60 accounts to somebody. I am actually talking about a very transformational thing. These are very different times. So I am saying that everybody is involved in collections. So everybody must get an allocation to collect. So even if you are the business head, you will collect on the top 20 accounts. Your credit head, you will collect from the 21st to the 50th account. If you are the zonal head, you collect from the 51st account to the 200th account. If you're the cluster guy, you collect from the 201st to the 500 accounts and goes down. Very different than earlier, where you used to give the list to the collection team and just follow up on MISs and and then collate and send it up. No, each person in the group will have to take responsibility for a set of accounts, because good customers are impacted, and make sure they're engaged so that it is rightly allocated. So the guys higher the chain get the best customers to manage. As we go down, it can change, and this will give you a better benefit. You have to change the script for collection, especially it will not go down well your earlier script for the good and the good customers, especially the larger part of the book. It has to be more soft, maybe assertive, but surely not aggressive. Time for you to drive productivity, not only performance. As you go forward, it will take time, but you will have to make sure the whole team is connected with the customer, talking to them, able to connect with them, get his understanding of the business. Has to be productivity linked. You will explore legal options which are online now, with whether it is through email, whether it's through WhatsApp. You will try to do different things, and it is important that you explore everything that is at your disposal. So in summary, you will focus on early vintage, which I mentioned, obviously on high value. Obviously, as I mentioned, I believe the rehabilitation is an important tool that you should do. And obviously, I believe that the front end is going to balloon, so the focus has to be on front end. So you will have to focus and prioritize on larger pool of good and marginal customers, because that is where the game will be won or lost. Not on the mid buckets or late buckets, in the front end and in the early vintage. Now, we can speak at length for hours. We can discuss this for hours, but it's the taste of the pudding is in the eating. It is in the execution. So how will you connect the dots? So how will you connect the customer segment to the product segment? From the product segment to the portfolio metrics, what is the portfolio saying? Then how is the customer responding to your contact? What is he or she saying? How is his or her cash flow has got impacted? And all this will design what collection strategy will you adopt? And then what collection actions will you take? And based on that, you will get a set of outcomes which has to loop back to the customer segment. So this execution loop has to be managed at a strategic level and has to be over managed by the national heads, the zonal heads, the regional heads. So at this time, you have to act differently, not what you did standard, but you have to act surely, because the first guy who goes off the block will get benefited. You have to remain flexible. So this is not a hard coded collection strategy. This is for the time, and you will all have to work together. It is no more a collection team's job. It is everybody's job. If you see, I have put this slide on execution and I have underlined some words. So it's an ongoing process. It's your top priority, which gives you a strategic focus. So do not allow to do things intermittently. Do not allow the non-priorities to come in and derail your focus. And how will you do it? You will have to motivate your team. You will have to monitor your team. And you will have to measure their productivity and performance. So with best wishes to all of you, I'm closing the session. You can still connect with me on email and share your queries and concerns. And in my future, our future sessions from Summit, we look forward for your participation. Thank you very much. Wish you the very best.